What happens when a rich man invites his cleaning lady to a fancy party just to laugh at her, but she shows up and turns his whole world upside down? Before we dive into this incredible story, please hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Viral Tales so you never miss stories like this. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because we absolutely love hearing from you. Now, let me tell you about Maria Torres and the night that changed everything. Maria was 35 years old and had been cleaning the enormous Sterling mansion for 2 whole years. The mansion sat on top of a hill in the fanciest neighborhood in California, with marble floors so shiny you could see your face in them and chandeliers that sparkled like frozen waterfalls. Every single day, Maria would arrive at 6 in the morning to the back door, put on her cleaning uniform, and become invisible. That's what rich people did best. They made people like Maria invisible. She could be standing right next to them, scrubbing their floors or dusting their expensive paintings, and they would talk about their secrets as if she wasn't even there. They would gossip about each other, make cruel jokes, and show their real faces because to them, Maria was just part of furniture, just another object in their perfect, expensive world. But Maria saw everything. She heard everything, and she remembered everything. Marcus Sterling was the owner of the mansion. He was 42 years old, tall, with gray hair at his temples that he thought made him look distinguished. He owned 3 companies, had more money than he could count, and treated people like toys he could play with whenever he got bored. His wife, Caroline, was just as bad. She spent her days shopping, gossiping with her rich friends, and looking down on anyone who had less money than she did. For 2 years, Maria had cleaned their mess, washed their dishes, and stayed quiet while they treated her like she was worth nothing. She needed the job. She had bills to pay and a life to rebuild. So she smiled politely, said yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, and did her work perfectly. But everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon. Maria was vacuuming the enormous living room when Marcus walked in with his friend, a man named Jeffrey who owned hotels all over the country. They were laughing about something, holding glasses of expensive whiskey, not caring that Maria was right there. "I have a most brilliant idea for the charity gala on Saturday," Marcus said, a mean smile spreading across his face. "Something that will make this year's party unforgettable." "Oh, do tell," Jeffrey replied, sitting down on the white leather sofa that Maria had just cleaned that morning. Marcus looked directly at Maria, and his smile grew wider and crueler. "I'm going to invite our dear cleaning lady here as a guest." Jeffrey nearly spit out his whiskey. "You're joking. To the gala? The one where the governor is coming? Where everyone who's anyone will be there?" "Exactly," Marcus said, his eyes gleaming with nastiness. "Can you imagine? Her, trying to fit in with senators and movie stars and business tycoons? It'll be the entertainment of the evening. We'll all watch her squirm and realize she doesn't belong. It'll be a lesson about knowing your place in the world." Maria kept vacuuming, her face calm, but inside her heart was pounding. She had heard Marcus say cruel things before, but this was different. This was planned humiliation on a massive scale. "That's deliciously evil," Jeffrey laughed. "But what if she doesn't come? What if she's smart enough to know it's a trap?" "Then I'll act disappointed and tell everyone she couldn't handle being around real class." Marcus shrugged. "But I think she'll come. People like her, they dream about this kind of thing. One night pretending to be something they're not. She won't be able to resist." That evening, as Maria was getting ready to leave, Marcus stopped her in the hallway. He was holding a thick golden envelope, the kind that cost more than Maria's weekly groceries. "Maria," he said, his voice dripping with fake kindness, "I have something special for you." Maria took the envelope carefully, her face showing nothing. "It's an invitation to our charity gala this Saturday," Marcus continued, watching her face like a cat watches a mouse. "It's a very exclusive event. Black tie, maximum elegance. I thought it would be nice to invite you for all your hard work. You've earned it." Behind him, Caroline appeared with 2 of her friends. They were all holding wine glasses and trying not to laugh. "Oh, Marcus, how generous," Caroline said in a syrupy, sweet voice that was obviously fake. "Maria, you simply must come. It'll be such a special night for you." I'm sure you have something appropriate to wear. The three women couldn't hold back their giggles anymore. They laughed like this was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. Dress code is formal elegance, one of Caroline's friends added, looking Maria up and down with disgust. You know, evening gowns, Diamonds, the usual. I'm sure you have plenty of those in your closet, right? More laughter echoed through the marble hallway. Maria looked down at the golden envelope in her hands. She could feel their eyes on her, waiting for her to say no, waiting for her to show embarrassment or anger or fear. The old Maria, the one from 2 years ago, might have thrown the invitation back in Marcus's face. But this Maria, the one who had learned to survive, simply looked up and smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," she said quietly. "I'll be there." The laughter stopped for just a second. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, surprised. "Wonderful." He recovered quickly. "Saturday at 8. Don't be late." As Maria walked out the back door, she heard them exploding with laughter behind her. She heard Caroline say, "Oh my God, she actually thinks she can pull this off. This is going to be priceless." That night, Marcus made a bet with Caroline and Jeffrey. $100,000 says she either doesn't show up, or she shows up and leaves within 20 minutes out of pure embarrassment. "You're on," Jeffrey agreed. "This is going to be the best entertainment we've had in years." What none of them knew, what they couldn't possibly imagine, was that Maria Torres had a secret so big, so shocking, that it would turn their night of planned cruelty into their worst nightmare. Because Maria hadn't always been a cleaning lady, and the life she had before, the person she used to be, was about to walk back into that mansion and change everything forever. The trap was set, but the question was, who was really trapped? Saturday night arrived like a storm waiting to break. The Sterling mansion was transformed into a glittering palace of wealth and power. Thousands of tiny lights decorated the gardens. A red carpet stretched from the circular driveway to the front entrance. Men in tuxedos that cost more than cars stepped out of limousines, with women dripping in diamonds and designer gowns. This wasn't just a party. This was where the most powerful people in California came to see and be seen. Inside the grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks. An orchestra played soft music in the corner. Waiters in white gloves carried trays of champagne that cost $500 a bottle. The governor was there. Famous movie stars were there. Business owners who controlled millions of dollars were there. And they were all waiting for the show Marcus had promised them. "She's not going to come," Caroline whispered to Marcus as 8 o'clock passed. She realized it was a trap. "We scared her off." "Give her time," Marcus replied, sipping his champagne with a confident smile. "People like her are always late. They don't understand punctuality like we do." But Marcus was wrong. At exactly 8:15, the massive front doors opened, and Maria Torres walked in. The entire room seemed to freeze. She wore a midnight blue gown that flowed like water down the floor. The dress caught the light from the chandeliers and sparkled like the night sky. Her dark hair was pulled back elegantly, showing a face that was calm and beautiful and completely fearless. She wore no jewelry except for small pearl earrings, but somehow she didn't need anything else. She looked like royalty. For 3 full seconds, nobody made a sound. They just stared. Then the whispers started like poison spreading through the room. "Oh my God, that's her. That's the cleaning lady. Where did she get that dress? There's no way she could afford something like that. She probably rented it and will be paying for it for the next 10 years. How embarrassing. She actually thought she belonged here. This is painful to watch. Someone should tell her to leave before she humiliates herself further." Maria heard every word. She had expected every word. But she didn't flinch. She didn't look down. She didn't apologize with her body language like they expected. Instead, she walked into that ballroom with her head high and her step steady, like she had walked through rooms like this 1,000 times before. Because she had. Marcus watched her approach, and something uncomfortable twisted in his stomach. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. She was supposed to look scared, out of place, desperate to fit in. But the woman walking toward him looked like she owned the building. "Maria," Marcus said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. What a surprise. We didn't think you'd actually come. Why wouldn't I come? Maria replied, her voice clear and strong. I received an invitation to a charity gala. I care about charity. So here I am. Some of the guests laughed cruelly. Caroline stepped forward, her face twisted into a fake smile. Of course, dear, Caroline said in that syrupy voice. It's just that we know this probably isn't your usual scene. You must feel so out of place surrounded by all this elegance, all these important people. It must be terribly intimidating for someone like you. Someone like me, Maria repeated softly. She tilted her head slightly, and her eyes met Caroline's with an intensity that made Caroline take a tiny step backward. What exactly do you mean by someone like me, Caroline? The room got quieter. People were leaning in now, sensing something was about to happen. Well, Caroline stammered, suddenly less confident. Someone who isn't used to this kind of lifestyle. Someone who works with their hands. Someone who cleans for a living. Ah, Maria nodded slowly. Someone who works honestly for their money instead of inheriting it or marrying it or stealing it from people who trust them. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus's face turned red. Now, wait just a minute. That's incredibly rude. I invited you here as an act of generosity, and this is how you repay me? With insults. Generosity, Maria said, and for the first time, she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Is that what you call it? Because I call it something different. I call it a setup, a trap, a cruel joke designed to humiliate me in front of all your powerful friends, so you can feel even more superior than you already think you are. Gasps echoed around the ballroom. Cell phones came out. People started recording. This was better than any entertainment Marcus could have planned. You invited me here thinking I would show up looking poor and desperate, Maria continued, her voice growing stronger. You thought I would stumble around and borrow clothes, not knowing which fork to use, embarrassing myself while you all laughed. You made a bet about how quickly I would run away in shame. $100,000, wasn't it, Marcus? Marcus's face went from red to white. How did you know about that? Because I've been invisible to you for 2 years, Maria said. And invisible people hear everything. Jeffrey, Marcus's friend, stepped forward to try to defend him. Look, whoever you are, you need to understand your place. This is a private event for people of a certain status. You're here as a guest out of kindness, but you're acting extremely inappropriate. My place, Maria repeated, and now her smile grew wider. You want to talk about my place? About status? About who belongs in rooms like this and who doesn't? She turned slowly, looking at all the faces staring at her. The senators, the business tycoons, the celebrities, the old money families who thought their wealth made them better than everyone else. Let me tell you something about status, Maria said, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom. 10 years ago, I stood in rooms exactly like this one, rooms even bigger than this. I wore gowns that cost more than the car Marcus drives. I attended parties where presidents and kings were guests. I knew which fork to use for every course because I was raised in a world where those things mattered. The silence was so complete you could hear hearts beating. My family name used open doors that your money can't even find, Maria continued. Torres Industries. Maybe some of you have heard of it. We built hospitals, funded schools, created jobs for thousands of people. We had real wealth. The kind that comes with responsibility and legacy, not just dollar signs. Marcus was shaking his head, his mouth open. That's impossible. Torres Industries collapsed 10 years ago in a massive scandal. The family lost everything. They disappeared. You can't be what, Marcus? Maria's eyes locked onto his. Can't be Maria Teresa Torres, daughter Ricardo Torres, the man who built an empire before people like you destroyed it with greed and lies? The room exploded with whispers. Phones were out everywhere now. This was going to be all over social media, within minutes. My father trusted the wrong people, Maria said, and now her voice carried pain underneath the strength. He went into business with men who smiled to his face and stabbed him in the back. Men who forged documents, stole money, and framed him for crimes he didn't commit. By the time we could prove his innocence, it was too late. The company was gone. Our money was gone. Our reputation was destroyed. And my father died of a heart attack before he could see his name cleared. Tears glistened in Maria's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. I was 25 years old when I lost everything, she continued. My home, my future, my identity. I had to learn how to survive in a world that suddenly saw me as nothing. So I did what I had to do. I worked. I cleaned houses. I stayed invisible. And I waited. Waited for what? Caroline whispered, her face pale. Maria turned to Marcus, and her smile became sharp as a knife. I waited for the right moment to come back. And I waited to find the people who destroyed my family. Marcus stumbled backward, his champagne glass slipping from his hand and shattering on the marble floor. "What are you talking about?" he said, but his voice was shaking now. "Tell them, Marcus," Maria said quietly, but everyone heard every word. "Tell them about Sterling Investments. Tell them about the deal you made with my father 15 years ago. Tell them about the documents you forged and the money you stole, and the lies you told the prosecutors to make sure my father went down instead of you." The room erupted in chaos. Marcus's face turned purple. "That's insane. You're making things up. You're just a bitter woman trying to blame someone else for your family's failures." "Am I?" Maria reached into her small evening bag and pulled out a thin folder. "Then explain these." She handed the folder to the governor, who was standing nearby looking absolutely shocked. He opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the papers inside. With each page he read, his face grew more serious. "These are bank records," the governor said slowly. "Wire transfers. Forged signatures. Marcus, these documents show that you stole over $30 million from Torres Industries and made it look like Ricardo Torres was embezzling from his own company." "Let me see those," demanded Senator Walsh, grabbing the folder. His hand started shaking as he read. "Oh my God, Marcus, this is fraud. This is conspiracy. This is criminal. Those are fake." Marcus shouted, but his voice cracked. Sweat was pouring down his face now. "She probably made them up. She's been in my house for 2 years. She could have planted evidence. She could have made up documents that have your signature on them." Maria interrupted calmly. "Documents that show exactly how you transferred stolen money into offshore accounts under fake company names? Documents that match perfectly with the evidence federal investigators have been collecting for the past 6 months. The room went completely silent again. "That's right, Marcus," Maria continued. 6 months ago, I finally gathered enough proof to reopen the investigation into my father's case. 6 months ago, I contacted the FBI. And for 6 months, while I cleaned your floors and listened to your conversations, federal agents were building a case against you. Caroline grabbed Marcus's arm. "Marcus, what is she talking about? Tell me she's lying." But Marcus couldn't speak. He was staring at Maria like he was seeing a ghost. "I became your cleaning lady for one reason," Maria said, and now her voice was filled with years of pain and anger finally being released. "To get close to you, to find evidence, to hear you talk about your illegal deals when you thought I was too insignificant to matter. Do you know how many times you discussed bribing officials while I was dusting your office? How many times you laughed about cheating people out of their money while I was vacuuming your hallway?" She took a step closer to Marcus, and he backed away like she was dangerous. "You destroyed my family because you were greedy," Maria said. "My father trusted you. He brought you into our company as a partner. And you repaid that trust by stealing everything we had and framing him for your crimes. My father died thinking he had failed, thinking the world believed he was a criminal. But I promised him before he died that I would clear his name, and I promised myself that I would make sure you paid for what you did. Jeffrey tried to step between them. Now hold on. Even if what you're saying is true, you can't just accuse someone like this in public without..." "Without what?" Maria turned to face him. "Without proper evidence? I have 15 years of financial records. Without witnesses? I have recordings of Marcus discussing his illegal activities. Without authority? The FBI will be here in approximately 3 minutes to arrest him. As if on cue, the sound of sirens began to echo in the distance, getting closer. Caroline started crying. "Marcus, tell me this isn't real. Tell me you didn't do this." But Marcus just stood there, frozen, all his arrogance and confidence completely gone. He looked like a man watching his entire world collapse around him. "The irony is beautiful, isn't it?" Maria said, looking around at all the wealthy guests who'd been so ready to mock her an hour ago. "You all saw me as inferior, someone to laugh at, someone who didn't belong in your world. You judged me by my job, by my clothes, by what you thought was my status. And not one of you looked deeper. Not one of you wondered who I really was." The governor cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Miss Torres, I remember your father. He was a good man. What happened to him was a tragedy. If I had known..." "If you had known, you would have done what?" Maria interrupted, her voice sharp. "Helped? Investigated? Or would you have ignored it like everyone else did because my father couldn't afford the right lawyers or the right connections anymore?" The governor looked down, ashamed. FBI agents started coming through the doors, their badges out. They moved straight toward Marcus, who didn't even try to run. He just stood there looking defeated. "Marcus Sterling," the lead agent said, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and falsifying federal documents. You have the right to remain silent." As they put handcuffs on Marcus, Caroline collapsed onto a chair, sobbing. The guests backed away like Marcus had a disease they might catch. The same people who had been his friends 5 minutes ago now acted like they had never known him. "Wait," Marcus said as the agent started to lead him away. He looked at Maria with something that might have been respect mixed with defeat. "You planned this whole thing. The job. Staying invisible. Being patient. This entire night. You orchestrated everything." Maria nodded slowly. "I learned something important when I lost everything. Marcus, I learned that real power isn't about money or status or big houses. Real power is about patience, about strategy, about knowing when to be invisible and when to be seen. You taught me that lesson when you destroyed my family. Thank you." The agents took Marcus away. Caroline followed, crying and screaming about lawyers. The other guests stood around awkwardly, not knowing what to do. The party that was supposed to be Marcus's moment of cruel entertainment had become his complete destruction. Senator Walsh approached Maria carefully. "Miss Torres, I knew your father. He was an honest man. If there's anything I can do to help restore your family's reputation..." "Now you offer help," Maria said tiredly. "Where were these offers 10 years ago when we needed them?" The senator had no answer. Maria turned to face all the remaining guests. "Let me leave you with one final thought. Tonight you all learned something important. You learned that the person serving your food might have once owned the restaurant. The person cleaning your office might have once run the company. The person you dismiss as insignificant might be the most powerful person in the room. You judge people by what you see on the outside, by their job or their clothes or how much money they have right now. But you never know someone's full story. You never know who they used to be, who they really are, or what they're capable of becoming." She paused, letting her words sink in. "My father used to say that character isn't about how you treat people who can do something for you. Character is about how you treat people who can't do anything for you at all. You all failed that test tonight. Every single one of you was ready to laugh at someone you thought was beneath you. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are." With that, Maria turned and walked toward the door. Her midnight blue gown swished behind her like a victory flag. "Miss Torres, wait," the governor called. "Where will you go? What will you do now?" Maria paused at the door and looked back one last time. "I'm going to rebuild what was stolen from me. Torres Industries will rise again, but this time it will be built on a foundation that can't be destroyed by people like Marcus Sterling. And as for what I'll do, I'll remember this lesson. I'll remember what it felt like to be invisible and powerless. And I'll make sure that anyone who works for me, no matter their job or title, is treated with dignity and respect." She smiled, a real smile this time, not sad or angry, but filled with hope. "Sometimes you have to fall all the way down to learn who you really are," Maria said. Sometimes you have to be invisible to see the truth about the world. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't about getting revenge. It's about proving that they couldn't break you no matter how hard they tried. And with those final words, Maria Torres walked out of the Sterling mansion for the last time, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget the night they learned that you should never judge a person by where they are in life, because you have no idea where they've been or where they're going. The cleaning lady had become a queen again, but more importantly, she had become something even more powerful. She had become someone who understood both sides of life, who knew what it meant to have everything and to have nothing, and who would use that knowledge to build something better than what came before. Justice had been served, but more than that, a lesson had been taught. And sometimes, lessons are worth more than revenge.